Everyone praises overseas Filipino workers, but here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The world runs because Filipinos do. From ICUs in London to cargo ships crossing the Pacific, if OFWs stop, entire systems stall. Tonight we'll prove it with cold numbers, and we'll lay out exactly how the Philippines must protect the people holding up the planet. If you stand with OFWs, smash like, subscribe, and type PROTECT in the comments. Every day, millions of Filipino families wait for a single message from loved ones abroad: I'm safe. That simple text carries relief, pride, and heartbreak all at once, because behind every message is a Filipino working overseas, holding the world together one shift at a time. From hospitals in London to cargo ships crossing the Pacific, from care homes in Japan to oil rigs in the Middle East. If overseas Filipino workers stopped even for a day, entire systems would tremble. The world doesn't just need OFWs, it depends on them. Let's talk facts. In 2024, OFW remittances hit an all-time high of nearly US $38,300,000,000, 0 cents, up 3% from the previous year. Cash remittances alone reached over US $34 billion, 0 cents, making them the Philippines' second largest source of foreign exchange next to exports. Early 2025 data shows the trend accelerating. Another US $3 billion, 0 cents, poured in just in February. That's not just money, it's the oxygen of this country's economy. Those billions fund groceries, tuition fees, mortgages, small stores, and even local government programs that rely on consumer taxes. Without those remittances, local banks would lose liquidity, rural towns would shrink, and the peso would collapse under the weight of imports. 8% of the entire GDP now flows from the hands of workers who left home to keep it alive. And that's just the financial heartbeat. Let's put faces to the numbers. More than 2.1 million OFWs are deployed globally, a nearly 10% rise in just a year. Around 77% work across Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, the Gulf, where Filipinos dominate care, logistics, and hospitality sectors. The rest stretch across Europe and North America, filling skill gaps that local populations can't or won't cover. They are the global workforce every developed nation quietly relies on but rarely admits. Nowhere is this more visible than in healthcare. The United Kingdom's National Health Service recently confirmed that 1 in 5 of its employees are foreign-born. Within that, Filipinos account for nearly 8% of all registered nurses and health visitors, roughly 40,000 people caring for British patients every single day. In the United States, Filipinos make up about a third of all foreign-born registered nurses serving hospitals coast to coast. They staff intensive care units, emergency rooms, and nursing homes that would otherwise shut down from shortages. Japan's elderly care sector, Canada's long-term care homes, and Israel's domestic care networks tell the same story. When other nations age, they call the Philippines. But nursing is only half the picture. Look at the seas. More than 500,000 Filipino seafarers now crew international vessels, container ships, cruise liners, tankers, handling nearly a third of the world's maritime workforce. Every shipment of food, fuel, or medicine you see likely passed through Filipino hands. The maritime industry already projects a global shortage of trained sailors by 2030, and who's expected to fill that gap? The Philippines again. That's not coincidence, it's competence. Filipino crew are known for discipline, technical skill, and English proficiency, a mix that few nations can replicate. Think of the call center voices you hear when resolving a bank issue, the caregivers guiding dementia patients in Europe, the engineers maintaining oil platforms in Qatar, the nannies shaping the children of billionaires in Hong Kong. The world's economies keep functioning because millions of Filipinos left their own families to serve someone else's. Yet, beneath the success story lies a paradox. The more the world depends on OFWs, the more the Philippines becomes dependent on their remittances. It's a fragile balance. We export our most skilled workers to stay afloat at home. The local healthcare system struggles because our nurses go abroad. Manufacturing loses talent because our welders and engineers chase higher wages overseas. We trade human capital for cash, a short-term lifeline with long-term costs. Here's where the emotional truth hits. For every remittance that builds a house in Bulacan, there's a mother missing her child's first steps in Dubai. For every diploma funded by a father in Riyadh, there's a teenager growing up without one. The money sustains lives, but it also splits them. That's the invisible cost nobody counts in GDP. Still, resilience defines Filipinos. They endure homesickness, exploitation, and discrimination with smiles that mask fatigue. They send balikbayan boxes, not complaints. They're ambassadors of kindness in places that barely know their names. But let's be real, gratitude isn't protection. Saying heroes means nothing if their contracts are weak, if agencies overcharge them, if governments fail to shield them from abuse. They don't need medals, they need systems that work. And that's the first shock this episode uncovers. While the world gains stability from OFWs, the Philippines gains vulnerability. We rely on the very people we're losing. The more we celebrate their heroism, the less we invest in the structures that could keep them home. Higher wages, safer jobs, stronger industries. It's a cycle that can't continue forever. Yet through all this, there's pride, because despite everything, the Filipino spirit keeps shining. In every country they touch, OFWs earn respect through integrity and heart. Employers around the world praise their empathy, reliability, and teamwork. You can't fake that. It's cultural. It's the same compassion that powers our nurses, the same patience that defines our caregivers, the same drive that built our reputation as the world's most trusted workers. But even the strongest lifeline frays if it's stretched too thin. If we don't protect these workers, others will recruit them away. If we don't reform systems at home, future generations will follow the same painful path abroad. The lifeline could become a leash, one we placed on ourselves. Comment protect if you believe OFWs deserve more than praise. They deserve safety, fair contracts, and a government that values them as partners, not just exporters of labor. Because this story doesn't end with success, it continues with struggle. They say the world relies on Filipinos, but reliance has a price, a psychological, financial, legal price that no hero should pay alone. In segment 1, you saw how OFWs fuel economies and hold systems afloat. In this segment, the mask drops, and you'll see what many workers experience in silence: debt, visa servitude, wage ceilings, burnout, and legal limbo, all while the nations they serve whisper their need but rarely deliver justice. Debt is the first trap. Many OFWs borrow heavily just to leave. Agency fees, training, placement, medical exams, flights. Some pay months or even years of salary in advance. When they arrive overseas, deductions begin. Fees for orientation, uniforms, relocation, transportation, eating into promised wages. In countries with high cost of living, London, Tokyo, Riyadh, rent alone is often 30 to 50% of earnings. Many Filipino nurses and caregivers share cramped housing with multiple others, skipping meals to stretch the budget. It's not luxury, it's survival. Then comes the visa trap. Jobs tied to a single sponsor. Lose one contract, lose your right to stay. The health and care worker visa in the UK gives 60 days to find new sponsorship or be forced to leave. That pressure forces many OFWs to accept unfair shifts, overtime, or abuse because speaking up risks everything. The visa becomes a leash. In some Gulf countries, the kafala system gives employers near total control, leaving workers unable to change jobs, move cities, or report abuse. All this while officials call these workers essential, yet refuse to safeguard their rights. Now consider wage ceilings and discrimination. In many host countries, Filipino workers are paid less than locals for the same job. Promotions and leadership roles often go to nationals or high-ranking expatriates. Many OFWs remain in entry-level roles for years, despite experience and qualifications. That disparity builds frustration. It whispers, "You are needed, but you are not equal." Countries that depend on Filipino workers, like the UK, Canada, Japan, often phrase visa policies to favor new recruits over retention, constantly pulling fresh graduates while neglecting those already serving. That causes burnout. Imagine working night after night, 6 or 7 days a week without meaningful rest. Patients depend on you, the machines beep, the lives hang in the balance, and you're still thinking of your child back home, tuition, rent, debts. Many OFWs face mental health struggles, depression, insomnia, anxiety. One survey revealed that a significant portion of Filipino health workers abroad considered quitting or repatriation due to mental burnout. Yet mental support programs are rare, inaccessible, or stigmatized. Many endure silently. Then there's the risk factor. We've seen abuse cases, neglect, overwork, even violence against OFWs in certain countries. While bilateral agreements exist, enforcement is weak. Complaints are ignored, complaints offices are under-resourced. Some OFWs fear retaliation if they speak up for themselves or their families. Their sacrifices make them vulnerable. Home hospitals collapse. Every nurse who goes abroad compounds the local shortage. Rural clinics close, patients wait days for minor treatment, young graduates rush overseas in turn. The system becomes a mirror. Import healthcare abroad to slow collapse. Export it abroad because collapse worsens. The more the world depends on Filipinos, the more their home suffers. The paradox hurts families, provinces, and communities. The more they hurt, the less health they provide. The more communities But there's a glimmer: compensation models that match the burden. In some nations, short-term hazard pay during COVID, government bonuses, and loan forgiveness for frontline workers were given, though often late or insufficient. Some countries now negotiate rent subsidies and dependence visas for OFW families. Yet most of these policies remain patchwork, with lapses between governments. In the Philippines, welfare programs through OOWWA, DOH, Department of Migrant Workers exist, but with delays, bureaucratic red tape, and limited scope. Not all OFWs get access to legal aid, repatriation funds, or prompt relief in crises. Some OFWs return home owing debts, unemployed, or traumatized, with no safety net. So we face the inevitable question: a world that calls them Lifeline needs to stop treating them like options. To protect OFWs, essential worker status can't be symbolic. It must be rooted in law, policy, funding, and accountability. Host countries should provide equal rights, job mobility, mental health support, visa flexibility, and fair wages. The Philippines must enforce stronger bilateral agreements, criminalize abusive recruitment practices, streamline welfare claims, fund reintegration, and build industries that make staying viable. Because a lifeline that breaks loses its purpose. If OFWs can't safely live abroad or return home with dignity, the global system has a fault line of its own. And when your lifeline is stretched too thin, the world begins to crack. Comment dignity if you believe OFWs deserve safety, fairness, and respect, not just gratitude. We'll sketch the blueprint, the laws, the protocols, the reforms, what the Philippines must do to protect the people who protect nations. It's time the world stops exploiting their sacrifice and begins defending their rights. If the world leans on them, it's time it stood with them. In segment 3, we shift from exposing injustice to building justice. We design not just bandages, but structure. Not just applause, but protection. Because if the Philippines fails to protect its lifeline, the lifeline might just snap and the world will feel the tremor first. Let's begin with an impossible question. What if the Philippines demanded respect before deployment? What if every OFW contract came with enforceable rights, not just promises? The blueprint starts there. First reform: legal enforcement of zero recruitment fees. No OFW should borrow heavily just to leave. Agencies charging placement, processing, training fees must be held accountable. The government must strengthen no-fee laws, blacklist offenders, publish violation logs, and ensure penalties hit hard. Imagine a portal where families check an agency's compliance rating before signing. That's transparency turned into protection. Second, pro-OFW contracts as standard. Every overseas contract must include minimum standards: wage floors, overtime caps, rest breaks, hazard pay, safe housing, healthcare, repatriation guarantee, legal aid access, violations subject to penalties both abroad and at home. No ambiguity, no exploitation. Third, binding bilateral labor agreements with strong enforcement. Many host countries sign BLAs, but compliance is weak. Each BLA should have joint oversight committees, public scorecards, and automatic dispute escalation. For healthcare, maritime work, BLAs must mandate equal treatment, job mobility, and visa flexibility. If host nations coerce, the Philippines must have legal recourse, business leverage, or retaliatory options. Fourth, streamline repatriation and crisis response. OFWs caught in war zones, disasters, or contract violations must have rapid support: evacuation, shelter, legal help, funds. OWWA and DMW must operate 24/7 command centers with satellite coordination. When COVID struck, many OFWs waited months for government help. Reforms must ensure no one is abandoned again. Fifth, reintegration and career transformation. Returning OFWs shouldn't be stranded. The state should match remittances with return grants, entrepreneurship funds, skills pathways back into local industries, guaranteed placement in sectors like health, tech, renewable energy. That way OFWs don't feel they must leave again to survive. Sixth, protection for dependents and families. Many OFWs leave children behind. Visa and immigration policies should extend support to families: dependent visas, scholarships for children, social benefits. If your worker is essential abroad, their loved ones must be protected at home and abroad. Seventh, mental health support network. Working abroad is mentally taxing. The state must invest in counseling, peer networks, crisis hotlines, and rehab programs for returning OFWs. Let them heal, not just earn. Ninth, data, transparency, and accountability dashboards. Quarterly reports, deployment counts, resolved complaints, payouts, welfare access times, country risks. Public dashboards mean Filipino families, journalists, and watchdogs can hold institutions accountable. 10th, political leverage and diaspora engagement. The Filipino diaspora is a voice and a vote. Engage OFWs in policy design. They should have representation in migration boards, consultations, and legislation. They don't just serve as labor, they are citizens abroad. In 10 years, if we execute this blueprint, fewer OFWs forced to leave because local salaries and opportunities improved. A global reputation shift. The Philippines is no longer just a labor exporter, but a rights leader. Host countries will compete to treat OFWs fairly, not simply take advantage. Remittances become part of an economy of return, not just survival. Because when you protect your workforce, you stabilize your nation. When you uplift your workers, you define your dignity. And when you treat your lifeline with respect, the world listens. The world needed OFWs, and now the Philippines must protect them. From recruitment traps to BLA enforcement, from wellness support to reintegration pipelines, the change must be systemic, not symbolic. Type vision if you believe it's time the Philippines protects its lifeline, not just with words, but with law, heart, and action. Our heroes abroad deserve more than gratitude. They deserve security. They deserve fairness. They deserve to come home to a country that fought as hard for them as they fight for the world.